rebuild or the favorites. We here for the latest. South side or the north side, not tuned to the greatest. Home team for the home teams. Both sides got our own rings. On the mound or the long ball, but we don't put the wrong strings. Yeah. It's that time of the year now. Wrigley or Ganty, so the whole league that we hear now. New show with a new mood. Discussions and interviews. Trade rumors that might be. This is Pinwheels and Knife.
Hello and welcome to the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast. I'm Mitch Kaminski, bringing you White Sox talk every Wednesday. A lot to discuss this week. Not much time to do it, so let's get right into it. We're going to start. A lot to talk about. We had the draft this week. Going to touch on a couple players that I think were some pretty interesting picks by all accounts. It did sound like the White Sox had a pretty successful draft. So we'll go into some of the highlights of that, discuss the 05 reunion weekend, and then, of course, the All-Star game last night. Really exciting All-Star game in general. National League jumped out to a big lead, 6-0 at one point. The American League clawed their way back. Brett Rooker, man, I think he was the star of the weekend. Kind of got screwed in the home run derby, but came right back last night. Hit a 3-run homer to get the team back in it. Had a really good performance in that swing off as well. So AL ties the game. The American League Central, it was having a rough night for them overall. The Skubal gave up a few runs. Bubic, I think, gave up a run or so. It wasn't looking great for them. And then the AL Central came through late. We had Bobby Witt Jr., who had an RBI. Then he ended up scoring the tying one after Stephen Kwan, who was a thorn in the White Sox side the week series leading into that All-Star game, had the game tying hit. So AL Central kind of redeemed themselves. They had that swing off, which was the first time they ever done anything like that. And I don't know what you guys thought, but I really enjoyed it. I thought that was a good way to decide an All-Star game. I kind of like how it kind of had there's a little bit of strategy to it. I know they were all predetermined who would be in that. And there's some guys that left early just because they had flight plans. Like I know Shohei Ohtani wasn't even in the stadium by the time that swing off started. As for a couple big stars, but I didn't think it was kind of cool how they match them up. You get 3 swings. It kind of builds some suspense. It was the perfect length, I thought. So really, really enjoyed that a lot more than I thought it would. Didn't really know what to expect heading into it, but and it seemed like the players were really into it too. Kyle Schwarber put on a clinic, hit 3 bombs, which is hard to do in that pressure situation, even with them throwing batting practice. And they mentioned this on the broadcast, but this was true too. Big shout out to the guys throwing the batting practice there because that's a lot of pressure. You know, these guys only get 3 swings. You got to really put it where you want to. Props to those guys as well. I think the same thing goes for the home run derby. But White Sox did have a representative in that game last night. That's who we're going to talk about starting off this show, Shane Smith. Now, it was interesting because he was pitching Friday, the first game of a doubleheader. He was scheduled to start the second game of that after the one game had gotten rained out. So he was initially scheduled to start Friday's game. Thursday night's game gets rained out. Will Venable decides to move him to the first game of that doubleheader. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And Venable's explanation was that, with it being the doubleheader, they might need to use the bullpen a little bit more. They wanted to see how far he could get through so that could kind of help them better set up their bullpen or know what they need out of their starters for game 2. And he was throwing the ball pretty well. Now, Shane Smith had been going through a bit of a rough stretch. And I do want to get into this in a second because I saw a lot of people on X that not necessarily in the White Sox community just being like, why is this guy an all-star? Is this really the best guy the White Sox have to offer? Because you look at the numbers on the surface and he's got an ERA north of 4, whips over 1. So it's like, what's so special about this guy? Is this really the best guy the White Sox have to offer? And I think he's absolutely deserving of being an all-star. A lot of that high ERA was just due to a stretch of, he's had 7 pretty bad starts where his ERA, so on May 16th, his ERA was 2.05, and his last 7 starts, he's had a 7.28 ERA. So that's kind of really inflated things for him. But, you look at this game Friday, he's pitching, and he was throwing the ball pretty well. He made it through 3 innings. He did give up 2 runs, but he finally had some swing and miss stuff, which we hadn't really seen in some of his previous starts. He had 5 strikeouts during that stretch. And so that was good to see him start getting some swing and misses. I was a little surprised they didn't let him go deeper. My theory was, okay, he must be pitching in the All-Star game. So they're trying to get him lined up, conserve his innings. The White Sox have said they're going to try to monitor his innings moving forward. I think he's less than 10 innings away from hitting his career high professional innings. He's never thrown over 100 innings in his career. He's already eclipsed 80 in the first half of the season. So I think the White Sox are going to be kind of careful with him. You might see him managing him like they did with Garrett Crochet earlier in the year. So, but he did eventually get in the game. They put him in the game in the 8th inning. Bottom of the 8th, he got 10 pitches. He did hit the first guy he saw, and that with Suarez there. So he puts him on first. Hopefully he's in Henio Suarez. Hopefully he's okay. Hit him in the hand, so that didn't look great. But then he did get James Wood from the Nationals to hit a chopper, ground out. So he was pulled after the game. After that, American League got out of the inning. Clean performance. But this guy, he does deserve to be an all-star. I was happy, one, that they got him in the game, because I am under the impression, I know some people think not every team should be represented. It's a showcase of the whole league. And the best player from every team should be there. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to play, but like if you're trying to grow the game, grow the sport, and you want everyone to watch, every representative should be playing. You know, if I'm a White Sox fan, I want to see my guy play, so I'm glad they got him in, at least for one batter. I think he didn't really, I was fine with just, them letting him go one out, considering there's, a lot more talented pitchers at this point in their career. But for the crowd that says he does not deserve to be of the honor, one, I think you haven't really watched him pitch. And that's a big problem if you're just looking at the numbers throughout the year. And that's something I got to get better. Like, you don't ever want to just be, looking at the numbers, this guy stinks. Well, yeah, baseball is one of the sports where you can look at a box score and you can tell if a player did well or not on any given day, which is one of the nice things about it. But it's not always black and white. You got to put some context into those numbers as well. And early in the season, you just look at the story this guy's had. He went from a Rule 5 pick in December. He was pitching all of last year in the Brewers double A system, right? Goes to a Rule 5 pick in September, battling to make a roster spot this spring, had that really impressive performance against the Dodgers that kind of made people start turning their heads, cracks a roster spot as a 5th starter. His first start of his career, he learned, he was still 24, so he learned on April 4th, a couple days or a few days before on his birthday on April 4th, that he's going to be joining the White Sox rotation. And then he makes his first MLB debut on April 1st, tosses 5 2/3 scoreless innings against the Twins, allowed 2 runs on 2 hits, 4 walks. His second outing, April 8th, he carried a no-hitter into the 6th inning. So, he showcased some pretty good stuff really early on. And through his first major league starts. Now, we mentioned his last 7 have not been great, but through his first 8 major league starts, he was one of just 3 pitchers in MLB history to throw at least 4 innings in each outing while allowing no more than 3 runs and 8 total bases. Big reason why is he had a changeup this offseason. Changeup, he's getting nearly a 30% whiff rate on that. Opponents are hitting 159 offset changeup. It's been filthy. It's one of the best pitches in baseball. He also leads the White Sox in strikeouts this year, and he leads them in starts. Now, I get Adrian Hauser had a legitimate case to be on that all-star team. Numbers-wise, he would probably say he should, but he's only made 9 starts with the White Sox. Shane Smith's made 18. So, yeah, the numbers don't look as good as they've had been, but overall on the year, he's the best pitcher, I think, on this team. He's going to be the biggest piece of their future in that rotation right now moving forward, because he does look like he has stuff to be a bona fide ace. And it's the best story, right? That's a really good all-star game story. There's only 2 players under this current format that have made the all-star team as a Rule 5 pick the year after being drafted in the Rule 5 draft. And that was Dan Uggla in 2006. So this does not happen very often. It's been nearly 10 years since we've seen something like this happen. So, all these people on, he doesn't deserve to be there. Kick rocks. Who would you rather have seen there? Adrian Hauser, who's going to get traded in a few weeks representing your team? Miguel Vargas, who's hitting like 210 right now? Yeah, he has a one good 30-game stretch. There was one pick to be the All-Star. It was Shane Smith. That was the right selection. He did deserve to be there. And I think the numbers are better than what they show. And I think he's going to finish the season with some respectable totals. I do think that ERA is going to come down a little bit. Be interesting to see how long of a leash they give him the rest of the way, just with the innings restriction. But happy for Shane Smith got that moment last night to get him in the game. I saw, it was also cool seeing that he was one of the few players that stayed on the field after the game. Which was nice. I know a lot of guys stayed. He stayed on the field for the swing off, rooting on his teammates. So, he seems like a good teammate, good guy. So even at his family. So hopefully he had a good time. Learned a lot there too from some of those veterans. Let's go to the MLB draft right now. So here's a look at who the White Sox have taken. We don't have to go through all of these, but you can see some of the picks here. First round pick, Billy Carlson out of Corona High School in California. Corona High School, 3 players drafted within the top 50, which is crazy. Jaden Fauski from Nazareth Academy, local boy. He played with Jim Tomey's son. That's one of these picks that I think the White Sox are very excited about. I've seen a lot of people very excited about that. Kyle Lotus, another shortstop. They took 2 shortstops first 3 rounds out of Georgia Tech. Landon Hodge, catcher. another high school catcher out of California. Now, I heard with Hodge that he's a very polished hitter, but there was some hesitancy that some teams thought he might not be interested in catcher. He didn't catch a whole lot this last season when they were on the kind of the scout travel ball circuit. I guess he was more of a DH, so that'll be interesting to see if he's a catcher moving forward. So the one guy now I will talk about. So it was interesting heading into this draft. You heard Mike Shirley, who is the director of amateur scouting for the White Sox. He was saying he did want this team, like the shortstop is kind of like the quarterback. As captain of the infield, you want kind of a lot of athletic guys. And they were really looking at, they were targeting, they had 5 high school shortstops that they were looking at. Billy Carlson, obviously being one of them. A lot of people thought it was going to be JoJo Parker. But Billy Carlson, he's one of the better fielders in this draft. Very polished fielder. You see, look at some of the videos, very smooth with it. Now, there's been some concerns about his hitting per se, but he did have a quote afterward. He's like, I'm not too concerned about that. He's like, I think I can, rake with the best of them. He's playing some pretty good competition in California. He's obviously on a very good team, but he was ranked as the fourth best infielder and 7th overall prospect in this year draft. He's only 18. He has a really big arm. Like he pitched a little bit in high school too. He's not going to be a two-way player, but he did pitch a bit in high school. Could throw the ball over 90 miles an hour. He had a 0.94 ERA in 22 appearances in high school. So he has a really good fielding grade on the scouting grade. They go to the 20/80 scale. He had a 70 fielding grade, a 70 arm strength grade as well. Now the hitting was a little bit of where it fell off for him a bit. Like I said, he thinks he can still turn that thing around. The White Sox think they can develop him. There's not a ton of power there. It doesn't look like 50 grade for hitting, 45 for power. And that's from Baseball America's grade. So it's unclear what position they want for him long-term, but I think this is a guy that they feel is pretty athletic. He was committed to go to Tennessee. They could have Colson Montgomery, who started Sunday's game at third base. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what they have planned for Carlson and where he pans out to be. But they said they wanted to target shortstops. They said they wanted to get more athletic, especially up the middle. And I think they did that with Billy Carlson. You get another shortstop in the third round. Now, the one I'm really interested in is Cody Shelton from Florida. And I think this is where the White Sox, because I think one of the big complaints about this year's draft, one of the things the White Sox needed was a little bit more pop. It's kind of tough to tell with a lot of these guys, but I do like Cody Shelton out of Florida. I think he showed a little bit of pop in college. He hit 52 homers in 170 games. He's a lefty hitting shortstop, so left-handed bat too. So that's going to be pretty interesting as well to see. Gabe Davis, 5th round pick, another guy that I think out of Oklahoma State. You look at some of the highlights of him, he's got some good stuff. I think he's got the chance to be an effective big league reliever moving forward. 6'9" frame, so intimidating presence on the mound. He's got 5 average. ESPN, they say he's got 5 average to slightly above average pitches. But I do think I think this guy, looking at the stuff, he looks like a type of guy that could be a reliever for this team moving forward. So that was pretty interesting to see. Jaden Fauske, I know a lot of the people are really excited about too. Is the White Sox round 2 pick out of Nazareth. He hit the ball really well this summer. Yeah, that could be interesting out of the Illinois prep side. And you got to remember, too, the White Sox are going to be reloading this farm system even more because they're going to have another likely top 5 pick next year, too. Really recommend our friend Ian Eskridge. You listen to the Future Stocks podcast. They do a much better job of breaking down the entirety of this draft. But I think overall, I think they did it. Mike Shirley, Chris Getz and company, they did a pretty good job. They said they wanted to target shortstops. It's exactly what they did. They got one of the more talented fielders in this draft. I know defense has been an issue for them for a while. And then, you got some, I think Hodge has got a little bit of pop. I think Colby Shelton's got a little bit of pop, and Gabe Davis could be one of the more underrated picks of this draft in the 5th round. But, with a lot of these guys in any draft, it is a crapshoot. So we'll see. Hopefully the White Sox can develop these guys, make them, make this rebuild turn around a little bit quicker. And speaking of rebuilds, past met the present this week, and the White Sox had their 2005 reunion. Mark Burley got a statue on Friday, and Sunday they kind of had or Saturday they had the whole 05 team there. A couple of them went up and spoke. Jermaine Dye talked. Ozzie Guillen gave a bit of a speech. couple other players spoke as well. Friday was really nice to see too. Mark Burley's daughter threw out the first pitch. His son did the national anthem. The statue itself, I thought, looked really good. I was worried when they were first showing the box that where it was going to be unveiled, that I was like, oh no, are they going to do the tarp slide? Is this statue? I was like, that's not going to be good. But I like the one they went with. It's him throwing. It sounds like the final pitch of Game 3 of the World Series is, I think, what they went with. But I do think that I like what they went with the statue. Just him throwing the ball. I know the perfect game one where he's got like the hands over his head. That would have been a cool one too. But this one, I think is I think it came out really well, and it does look like him too. So that was nice to see. It was funny. I heard AJ Przinsky joking. I believe it was AJ. It was Burley or AJ. They were joking on the broadcast that like when they were players, they had the 1983 team come in for a reunion, and they were joking like, man, like look at how like old, fat, and gray these guys look. I hope we don't look like that. And then now that they're the old, fat, and gray ones. So this reunion, I know they had the 10-year anniversary one a few years ago. This one felt a little bit different just because they had a couple guys still playing at that time. So it was nice to see everyone back. It was a little sad that, Bobby Jenks wasn't there. Obviously, I thought they did a tremendous job honoring him. Mark Burley came out with a bunch of Miller Lights. They all did a toast to him. That was really cool to see. But that 05 team, man, it's one of the more overlooked teams in MLB history. I don't think they get the respect they deserve for going 11-1 in the postseason. That Sunday they had the 4-1 bobblehead with Freddie Garcia. Yeah, they're giving out these. And it's a performance that, like, with those four starters, Jose Contreras, Mark Burley, John Garland, you're probably never going to see that again. But that team was just a well-rounded team. They capitalized on other people's mistakes, like AJ with the drop third strike. They played good baseball. So a lot of people call it like lucky, or like, oh, it was kind of like a fluke. They went on this magical run. But no, they had a lot of good players on that team. Maybe not any superstars, but there's just a lot of solid baseball players. And they played good. They played the game the right way. And people, I think there's a big misconception that the White Sox were this big small ball team. Now, they had a lot of home runs too. They capitalized on other people's mistakes, and they played a lot of clean baseball. Good starting pitching, and is going to do that for you, especially when you're playing good defense. So that I thought it was fun to see them all back. And I thought it was good for a lot of these younger guys too that are just starting to come up. You got the core, you got something to aspire to now. You're seeing all these guys that won in 2005. Friday's game to me was a perfect encapsulation for Mark Burley. Because Mark Burley, if you looked at his career overall, I think he's a Hall of Famer, Missouri man, Mark Burley. But he was never flashy, right? He had a fastball that was like 85 miles an hour. He worked really efficiently. Fielded his position well, but it was never flashy. It was always effective, but like he was never one of these highlight reel pitchers that's putting up big strikeout numbers and blowing it by people with overpowering stuff. He just knew how to locate his pitches really well and deceive hitters. And he did better than anyone. So I thought that was, and then with that 05 team in general too, again, they capitalized on people's mistakes. And that's exactly what the White Sox did on Friday in their only victory of that series. I thought they did a good job. It was also raining a little bit in extra innings, which was very fitting for Mark Burley, given that one of his signature moments was the tarp slide. So all in all, it was interesting to see because the White Sox did a lot of the little things right, much like Mark Burley did throughout his career, to be effective in that game. It took a sacrifice bunt, or to move a runner over. They had a sac fly to tie it up, getting guys on with a few walks. And then in extra innings, Mike Vassell comes out, Mike Vassell, dog of the week, throws a scoreless inning in the 9th. They put him back out there for the 10th. The runner starts on second base, gets himself into trouble, weasels his way out of it without giving up a run, loads the bases again because the White Sox can't push a run across either, and gets out of it once again with a big double play. Ice in his veins. He was fired up leaving the mound, deservedly so. And then the Bradley legend himself, Mike Tauchman, with a little dribbler. It was kind of like that scene from Major League, where like, oops, and hits little number off the bat. He beats it out at first base, though, kind of went under the pitcher's hand. White Sox win that game. Dropped another. They went to extras again on Sunday. Couldn't close that deal. What was very frustrating this week, talking about little things, right? I know we're kind of a little bit all over the place here. Saturday's game was a very frustrating. Sunday's game, Saturdays was frustrating too. Both of these games, there's a couple things that really pissed me off. Lenyn Sosa, I've been hyping him up. I think he's been one of the better offensive players for this team. He had 2 home runs on Friday, so that kind of backed that up. But defensively, man, there's not a whole lot of places you can put him. This team doesn't have a first baseman. He looked lost at first base. There was a pop fly on one of them that was kind of in between Vargas and him, and he was at second base at point. So there's like a little pop fly ball, and it's in foul territory, and it was going to be a tough play, but he didn't even move over to run after and try and get it. It was a ball that could have been caught. He didn't even put an effort to run over there. That was annoying. And then they have a double play ball that would have gotten him out of an inning later in the game. And he just straight up dropped the ball at first. He cannot play first base. He's not a first baseman. I don't think Miguel Vargas is a first baseman either. They got to get the first base thing figured out. They do not have a first baseman at the moment. I get Chris Getz likes these guys that are versatile and can play multiple positions, but who cares if you can play multiple positions if you're not good at any of them, right? Like, at least Leury Garcia, when he was playing multiple positions, he was never an elite defender, but I thought he was a serviceable defender when they would put him in various positions. Don't put Lenyn Sosa at first base if he can't play first base, because he's shown us time and time again he cannot. He can hardly play second base. He leads the AL in errors at second. So that was a bit frustrating. And then mental mistakes too, especially coming from a veteran. Sunday's game really turned. The White Sox were in control of that game. Aaron Savali was having his best start as a White Sox starter. He had 5 scoreless innings, cruising, really efficient throughout. And then the 6th inning comes. Base runner, he gets a base runner on, and he gets into a bit of trouble. And they hit into what should have been an inning-ending double play. Like, not tailor-made double play ball, would have been a close play, but they had the chance to get out of this inning. So it's kind of one of those where it's like in between first and second. So Sosa's going to field the ball, but it ended up being the first baseman's ball. So they throw to shortstop, they get the first out, and Savali should have been covering first base. He did not cover first base. Because he didn't cover first base, the runner was safe, inning continues. Very next pitch, the guy hits a 3-run homer, and what went from a 3-0 lead in 2 pitches quickly became the White Sox down by about 4-3. So it's like little things like that is frustrating, especially from one of your veterans. I know Venable was saying after the game he was kicking himself. And I mean, mistakes happen. I make plenty of mistakes. Yeah, I get it. We're human. But when you're a veteran, man, like that's like one of those that's a tough mistake to excuse. Like, that's one of those you learn in Little League. Hey, ball set on the right side as a pitcher, you're covering first base. So I don't know if it was a brain fart, if he was looking out. I don't know what happened, but that was one, man. It felt like the White Sox should have won at least 2 or 3 in that series. The Saturday was kind of a dud of a performance overall. They hung in that game. But like that Sunday, that was a game it felt like they really should have won. But, let it slip away. It's too bad. At least they did get the one win. I thought it was very reminiscent, like I said, of Burley. They had the rain that was fitting with the tarp slide. They were doing a lot of little things right. It wasn't flashy by any means. It took a little, especially that Talkman hit, went like 4 feet, but got the job done. So good overall reunion weekend. I do wish, though, that the White Sox, it's been 20 years now. I wish they had something else they could celebrate besides this 05 team. It feels like it's been very forced over the years where they're really milking it. Honestly, they're milking it. And I love the 05 White Sox. One of my first and favorite White Sox memories, going over to my aunt's house and watching them win Game 4. It was like, it was a great team. It was a fun team to watch. But the fact that we don't have anything else to celebrate after 20 years and we're still milking this team, it's a bit sad. It's a bit sad. So I hope they do something to change it. I know the Players Union is talking about adding the salary cap. And I know a lot of fans are excited about a salary cap. Like, oh, it'll help teams like the White Sox that don't spend compete. I'd be careful with that. I know they might be getting the new owner with Justin Ishbia in 2029, so that might change things. But you go to a salary cap, there's a lot of these owners, like Jerry, I would think, if you look at the way he operates, he's running this team because they want to turn a profit. They don't have to spend, right? You put a salary cap where these teams have a limit on what they can spend all of a sudden. I think Jerry's even less incentivized to spend money. At least the way it is now. If you want to compete, you better be willing to spend. Better be willing to spend to compete with the big boys. Forces you to pony up, even if it's so. I think by putting that salary cap on, you're incentivizing these owners that don't want to spend. Like, oh, we don't have to spend less because all the other teams are spending less now too. So I'd be careful. I'd be careful with that. But let's get something else to celebrate here. It's been 20 years already. Love the 05 White Sox, but come on, let's have a different reunion of some sort. Rather, forget the reunion. Let's have a championship celebration soon. That way we don't have to keep milking these guys every time they're trying to sell some tickets. Just my 2 cents. We shall see. We'll be back next Wednesday during the 12 o'clock hour. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to check us out at Sports Mockery, sportsmockery.com. You can read a bit more in-depth article about the draft. Shy Sox fan Mike, he has a whole breakdown there and a breakdown of our first round pick, Billy Carlson. You can read about Shane Smith's road to the All-Star game as well. Why that's been such a good story, as well as their a couple of their performances over the weekend. So check all that out on our White Sox page. And the content we have throughout the season on there, Sports Mockery, sportsmockery.com. That's all we have for you. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your week.